news has come out that in this pandemic, uh, billionaires added $5 trillion to their fortunes. I mean, at some point you have to laugh because it prevents you from crying. But billionaires added $5 trillion to their fortunes. Colin, let's play the clip from the CNN economics person.
Yeah, you know, Casey, when times are tough, the rich get richer. When times are good, the rich get richer. You see the pattern there? The pandemic, a profit machine for the world's richest people. A new report from Oxfam finds billionaires added $5 trillion with a T to their fortunes during the pandemic, jumping from $8.6 trillion in March 2020 to $13.8 trillion as of November. That's a bigger jump than in the previous 14 years combined. Now, that's all billionaires. Let's look at the combined wealth of just the world's richest 10 men. That includes Tesla's Elon Musk, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg. You see him there. Their wealth more than doubled during the pandemic, jumping by, get this, $1.3 billion a day, every day. All told, their total worth is 6 times greater than the world's poorest 3.1 billion people. It's almost mind-boggling. So how did this happen? Well, central banks pumped trillions of dollars into financial markets to save the economy, Casey, during the pandemic. That set off a stock market boom that lined the pockets of billionaires. Oxfam says this inequality is not by chance. They say it's by choice, and governments should tax those gains and use the money to fund healthcare, vaccines, to address the climate crisis. You've heard calls, as you know, in this country, in the U.S., to tax wealth, not earnings of the super rich. You know, their money doesn't come from a salary or hourly earnings like regular workers. It comes from the stakes they have in their companies, their investments. So they're, I guess you could say, the super rich are they're different than the rest of us, Casey.
Well, at least I don't know, maybe that was an accidental admission that they said, you know, they're different than the rest of us. And, you know, maybe part of the reason they're different than the rest of us is I, the CNN economics reporter, don't really report on corruption or, you know, politicians being bribed by these very rich, wealthy people like Elon Musk. We don't really like to report on the fact that Elon Musk was made, whatever he is, a billionaire because of government-funded research for Tesla. I could go on. But this is your sweet spot. They explain that these billionaires became 5 trillion richer in large part because of the super soaker that the Fed put out there throughout this pandemic. Could you break that down for the dummies, how that worked, that these billionaires became even richer?
So, you know, it kind of cracks me up because the Fed can't create money to give out to people like that. That's not how it works. You know, they can change the form of debt. They can change it from treasuries and stuff to more liquid forms of cash or whatever, but they can't pump money into. That's not how this works. But she was right on so many things. There's probably give her 80% on that one. One of the things that she really nailed out there. Yeah, I mean, so as far as it goes, obviously those taxes are really not about funding any initiatives. So that's part of the 20 that she gets wrong. But that the idea of taxing wealth as opposed to income is exactly the correct statement there. I was very happy to hear that. I don't hear that from many people. That was a nice thing, because what we're really trying to do is we're trying to tax away the power these billionaires have over our lives, not so much to fund programs, right? Their ability to buy and sell our government, to make deals across, you know, country lines with other multinationals and other governments, quite frankly, is staggering. The amount of things that they can do with that money apart from the nation, without a blessing, so to speak, without the people behind it. I mean, this is truly the crowning achievement of neoliberalism, is that point of those 10 making that much money during a pandemic, for God's sake. I mean, you think it's bad to see politicians get rich when they're in office. How much more disgusting is it to see people make that much profit over the death and suffering of the world, not just the US, the world? It's amazing hubris, and it's right there in your face. The fact is that we could have solved so many of these problems of them getting that much money by simply putting the money, spending that money down to the little people so that they have choices where to spend it, but simultaneously having that wealth tax at the top to prevent that mass perverse collection of the GDP of the nation. I mean, they got a huge vacuum just sucking up all the production right up to the top, and it never makes it to Jane and Joe public, ever, ever. It stays in that fire sector, in the investment community. This is what is making stock market go crazy, right? Because there's lots of money to play with there. It is not making it to Main Street. So that real division between the haves and have-nots, it looks bad in numbers, but it's even worse in practice, because you see people really struggling right now mightily, as these guys are literally they don't even know what it's like to be in the other world. They have no idea what the rest of us are feeling. They don't care either, because the movie Don't Look Up, for all its warts and everything, was a fantastic movie, and it points to this kind of thing right here as it stands. The absurdity of it all should really, really make each one of us stand up and take notice and really get prepared to fight back. Forget Biden's corpse begging us to fight for him. We need to be fighting about this, because we couldn't even get $2,000 checks. But these guys, I mean, Elon Musk got $5.9 billion in subsidies for Tesla. $5.9 billion. And we couldn't get $2,000 checks? Are you
Right.
kidding me?
And by
It's
the
just
way,
insane.
let me just point out, according to the World Bank, this is from a CNN article. According to the World Bank, estimates that 97 million people worldwide fell into extreme poverty in 2020 and are now living on less than $2 a day. The number of the world's poorest also rose for the first time in 20 years. So this is at the same time as billionaires made another 5 trillion. But I'll also point out what she didn't mention, which doesn't really get talked about. It's kind of like climate change. They don't talk about it. It's not sexy. They don't think it will rate. There's one common denominator with a lot of these billionaires. They're monopoly men. They have monopolies.
Yep.
Bezos, Bill Gates, many of these others. They've not only rigged the market, not only in the case of Amazon, literally stole from other companies IP, proprietary information, which is a huge scandal. A lot of Amazon's growth has been by basically stealing formulas from smaller businesses, then creating knockoff Amazon products, rising Amazon's knockoff product in Amazon's algorithm, and burying the original small business that created certain things. But a huge reason while these billionaires are getting richer is we have monopolies basically hoarding the demand in this country throughout the pandemic. What are your thoughts on that?
1984, we broke up the Bell system for far less, egregious behavior. I mean, the phone companies were broken up and then they reemerged, and now we're down to what but a handful of them again, right? Antitrust, monopoly busting behavior has got to become the flavor of the day. We have got to get that to become a thing. We've got to get it back in fuego. We got to get that in the Overton window, because if we don't eliminate this kind of monopoly behavior, I mean, that's where most of your inflation is coming from right now, is monopoly behaviors across the fuel industry and these other rich bastards that are sitting there gouging the hell out of the public. This monopoly behavior is so corrosive to a functioning democracy in the United States, much less survival around the world. I mean, think about the lack of ability to get the damn vaccines in these very impoverished nations. Bill Gates holding on to the damn patents like he's, Scrooge. It's ridiculous. I mean, this is behaviors that, if we don't take this part seriously, to purge corruption, to go after this, there's no point in talking about a lot of the other downstream issues. This is like that ground zero. You got to fix this to see change down here. If we don't fix that, we're screwed. That's big time, Jordan.